spun from tales told by men who knew, from the gaudy gold rush poetry of Robert Service, the grim books of Jack London, and from pictures that still hang in the private gallery of my imagination. Alaska, the last frontier, land of the grizzly and polar bear, of roaring rivers and soaring mountains, of glaciers and icebergs that blot out the sun at high noon. I'd seen the icebergs in the spring when I lived with the Eskimos and shared a small measure of their commitment to the blue and barren north. Up there, I'd lived my dream to the last detail, with the whales and the polar bear and the ice that runs into the sky. But now it was August, sunshine time out on the Alaskan Peninsula, and I was beginning the second leg of my journey.
Wow. Howdy.
For the next 3 weeks, I'd explore many more facets of this rich and varied mosaic sometimes called the Alaskan adventure, a phrase filled with more myth than reality, for no one man lives long enough to know it all. A land so vast as to be almost incomprehensible, where adventure can still run flat out, because there are no limits here.
I can't wait to see the Rainbow Mountain. I can't wait.
And the individuals I was to share all this with have spent their lives pursuing the Alaskan adventure. There was Hoppy Harrower, bush pilot extraordinaire. Red Dodge, an Alaskan legend in his own time. Tony Oney, he takes everything to the limit. Michael Darling, why, his ambition is to one day know intimately every corner of the state. Did I say state? Alaska's not a state. It's an experience. Sound like a song?
Sounds beautiful.
I'm excited to see the Wrangell Mountains, Tony. I really am.
You just kind of dreamed that up, huh?
Well, I don't know what happens with a song. It seems to me sometimes, Michael, that I just kind of get out of the way and they come. I think there's a lot of music inside me has to do with this country.
That's the way I feel about it. That's why I'm still here.
Yeah? Did I ever tell you guys about the first bear I ever saw?
I don't think so.
I saw a black bear. I was working in a lumber camp in Lester, Washington one summer when I was in college. And they had a garbage dump outside of camp, and they always had a bunch of bears messing around there. And they told us to stay away from them, but it seemed to me, you know, I was a pretty dumb kid at the time. And I went over one time, we were driving by down the road, and we could see some bears there. And this guy, Ron Ernest, and I, we went to school together, and he came up there with me. We went over to see these bears, and Ron was behind me, and I'm kind of creeping down through the brush, getting up by this garbage dump, and all of a sudden I came over a little kind of plowed up ground, a little mound, and there was an old outhouse sitting there. And I came up and kind of turned like this, and about 10 feet away, no further away than the lake right there, was this black bear. And he was looking right at me. And I'm standing like this, and he's looking at me, and I froze. And my heart started pounding. And Ron is back here saying, "Go on, John, keep going. What's the matter?" You know, like this. And pretty soon the old bear just kind of looked away and looked that way and then lumbered off. And I had to sit down. And Ron came up, and he never saw the stupid bear. And of course, he didn't believe the story that I told him, but I will never forget, man, sitting there like this, frozen, and that bear looking right at me, and Ron's behind me saying, "Go on, go on. Do you see it yet? Go on." And I was too scared to say anything and afraid to say anything. You know, that bear would hear me. And
Black bears actually kill more people up here than the brown or polar.
How about that photographer that was down on the peninsula down there, and he said, "No," he says, "those bears won't bother you. They won't bother you." And everybody said, "Well, you better take a gun out there, you know, just, no, I don't need it. Don't need it at all." So he goes, they went out to find him, you know, and all they found was just his skull.
Is that right?
The rest was gone.
They found his billfold in the bear's stomach when they later on killed the bear.
Bear and found his billfold.
Right.
But who today look to the wilderness as a source not of gold or furs, but of something far more valuable. A few miles downstream, we beached our rafts for the night. And while Tony and Mike set up camp, I followed Red back into the woods where he hoped to show me a resident of Alaska he knows and loves as well as any man.
Wow! Is that nice?
Oh, Red, that's beautiful. That's just beautiful. Boy. How big are brown bears, Red?
Well, they get up to 1,800 pounds.
1,800?
1,800 pounds.
Golly, that's beautiful. There's a symphony going on out there. I love listening to the music that there is, that nature gives us.
Listening to the water ripple.
Yeah, the water running, some birds calling way over there. There's rapids, it seems like, right down below there.
There's a bear in the water, I think, John.
Where?
Get lined up on something. Well, he's behind a tree right now. Line up on. Look down there, and you see a sandbar.
Got the sandbar.
See the end of the sandbar?
The right end?
On the left end, way down
Okay.
the left end. Just where the river makes a turn on the end of that sandbar, there's a brown bear standing right against the bank.
I got him. Yes, I
Got
do.
He's moving a little bit right now.
Yeah, I can see him. I can see him moving, Red. Far out. Look at that guy.
They get right in the river and get with it on fish.
How big do you think that bear is?
I'd say about 1,000 pounds.
Whoa! Isn't that amazing? He looks real dark to me. He looks like a black bear.
No, he's brown.
Don't have any black bear up here?
Not in here. There's a few, but not too many. When the brown bear move into an area, the black bear move out.
Is that right?
They don't get along too well.
Is that right? Is there like a caste system? And
They kind of stake out their own area.
he just smashes down and gets that fish. About the kind of fisherman that I am. Just a swipe like that. Isn't that amazing?
Get a big old boar bear, like that rascal down there. That's kind of his area, and he's working here. They don't move too much, really. They stick around fairly close.
Yeah, he's got that corner staked out.
John, let's go off down here. We'll get a better,
You think we'll see any
about
up here?
another half a mile up here. We'll get to a point where you can look down onto the river where there's
Yeah?
good locations for bear.
Well, now, let's not get too close. Now that we'd seen a bear, Red seemed almost in a hurry, as if he knew something I didn't. And why not? This country was almost as much his as it was the bear's. For some 30 years, Red has flown bush over every inch of the Alaskan peninsula, escaping death more times than a man has a right to. His name is known in every settlement from Barrow to Juneau. He's fished and trapped and hunted along virtually every river worthy of the name, including the McNeil, famous mainly for its dense population of brown bear. Boy.
That pretty out there?
That's just beautiful.
I think we can sit right down here and watch for bear on the sandbar out there.
Oh.
Feels good to sit down for a while, doesn't it?
Red, there's a sow and 2 cubs. See over there on the point. Those are just young cubs,
those
too.
are this year's cubs.
Boy,
She's sure fat.
that's pretty good timing.
See all the seagulls down there waiting for dinner?
Yeah. Why is that?
Well, they all follow the bear around. They clean up the mess he leaves. That second one is a real pretty caramel-colored one, isn't it?
Yeah, much lighter than the other.
One looks like it's got real long hair.
Yeah.
That caramel-colored one.
Yeah. Boy, he's a pretty guy.
Saw catching
And they're
any
going
fish?
right out on the point. He's getting ready to. She hasn't caught one yet.
I like those light-colored ones. I think
Yeah.
they're pretty.
That reminds me of when I was up in Jasper. Grizzlies are gold-colored.
Aren't they pretty?
They're beautiful, just beautiful.
silver
Like
tips.
the grizzly's the same as though it's a brown bear.
Same classification of bear.
Different species.
Different location. They've got them classed up here where anything within, I think it's 60 miles of the coast is considered a brown bear, and anything 60 miles inland and beyond is considered a grizzly.
Oh, is that right?
That's how they classify them. She seems to be doing the fishing, and they're sitting on the bank waiting for lunch.
Waiting, isn't that how it is with kids? Right there, she got one. Boy! No big deal, just slap it up out of the water.
Drag it up on the bank and feed it to the kids.
Now they know, I guess the salmon are moving upstream each year at this time, huh?
They come up to die.
You said that on the raft earlier today.
They go out in the ocean after they're born,
Yeah.
and they spend 3 to 5 years, depending on the different species of salmon.
Yeah.
And then they come back to the same place. Nobody knows where they go in the ocean for sure, but they come back in 5 years and swim up the river and spawn and then die.
And they don't know where they go.
Don't know where they all go in the ocean. They just have never tracked them
Disappear out
real
there.
well.
That must be an incredible kind of drive, you know. I wonder if human beings have anything like that, about going back to the place where you're born,
I think they do.
where your roots are. It seems to me there's a lot of people in society today that don't have any roots. See, I never had anything like that. When I was, my dad was in the Air Force and we traveled a lot. And I know some of my friends now who have such a strong feeling about their home, where they grew up. Annie, you know, the house that she grew up in, the kids that she went through grade school with, and junior high school, and then a lot of them even to college, you know. And I never had anything like that. And it seems to me there are a lot of people. That's why Aspen means so much to me now. Yeah, that's.
I think everybody needs a place to go
Yeah.
that you can call home. You see the other bear
There's
coming
the
out
bear
onto
right
the,
there.
big one
Look
coming
at
down.
that guy. Wow. Now, will they bother this other bear over here? Or?
Quite a few times you see a group of them fishing together, and they seem to get along pretty well.
I think that's just beautiful.
This one down here, the sow down here with the 2 cubs, is getting a little close in the grass, John.
They're just kind of playing around down there, aren't
Just, they're so fast, John. She can come out of that grass, and in about 3 leaps of about 12 foot to each leap, can be on us. A couple of years ago in king salmon, this Dick Jensen, a friend of mine, was walking in the evening just right out of camp. And a sow come up and got him, and she tore out his windpipe and scalped him and laid his eyeball out on his face and then threw him down, and then she came back and got him in the shoulder and just tore his shoulder blade out and tore him up with her teeth, and that's getting pretty close. Dick is all sewed up now and back in pretty good
He
shape.
survived that,
He has
huh?
trouble with his voice yet.
Yeah.
He doesn't talk very well. But he was just walking with his wife down the road.
God, did the bear get hurt at all?
2 bounces. No, she got away. Charlotte made it, but there were 2 bounces from where that bear was, which is almost as close as that.
Well, but he's all the way down the hill, though.
Yeah, that hill ain't that high.
And here comes the third one. Isn't that
That's a
something?
sow and 2 of last year's cubs.
Right then, something began to happen out on that river. And I'll never forget it. Red pointed, and the mother and cubs that had been so close to us were moving toward the river. Then a huge male emerged from the tall grass, testing the wind. Then another younger male was suddenly right below us in the stream. Where had he been? A sow and her spring-born cubs appeared on a sandbar. And still another male waded in a little upstream from us. And still another. It was as if they were responding to some natural command mysterious only to us. They kept emerging from spots we'd scanned a dozen times with our glasses. Spots where I might easily have walked if I'd been down there alone, fishing. But no matter how many salmon and trout might be lying in that pool, there was no place for a man with a fly rod. This fishing hole belonged exclusively to the Alaskan brown bear. Although similar scenes take place all along the Alaskan coast, nowhere does it happen on such a grand scale as on the McNeil, where one of the heaviest salmon runs in the world occurs each spring. And the brown bear's very existence depends on these feasts. For without the salmon, it is questionable whether the brown bear would be able to store enough protein to see it through the cruel Alaskan winter. And so, his appetite tuned by millions of years of survival, he feeds as if his very life depended on it. And so the salmon feast drew to a close, ending as mysteriously as it had begun. The males, their bellies full, slipped slowly back into their afternoon slumber. The sows took their young back to the safety of the tall grass, where they too would settle down and go to sleep. And I wondered, how many times over how many centuries had this primordial ritual been carried out, unobserved within the secrecy of the wilderness? As we started to make our way back to the river where Tony and Mike were waiting with the rafts, I don't recall that I said very much. I think I was trying to come to terms with the wilderness, trying to somehow balance out the scene I had just witnessed down in the river with the tranquility of these woods. And just as my emotions were beginning to settle down a little... My God, the bear in the... There's two. There's three of them. Now this was something altogether different from sitting unobserved and watching bears feeding. This time they saw us too. An equal mixture of fear and fascination gripped us.
I can see her back in here.
Where?
She's walking back in here. Right there. The two cubs are coming behind her.
Okay, well, let's just move by then. This time, they had detoured. And now that they were behind us, they didn't seem so threatening. I thought, once in a lifetime. That meeting with the sow and her yearlings reminded me of the battle to save the few remaining grizzlies in the lower 48. You see, I know that the loss of the grizzly will reduce All through dinner that evening, I couldn't shake off my uncertainty. And afterwards, beneath the diffused light of the midnight sun, I fished alone, fighting without success against the painful memory of a part of my spring trip to the Arctic with Tony and Hoppy, to the Eskimo town of Barrow, where Progress has made a recent visit and left behind the squalor of change. Perched alone on the northernmost tip of Alaska, Barrow is known quaintly as a town in transition. Its 1,300 residents jolted into the American present by the frenzied rush for oil and the promise of a brighter future. For these people, whose forefathers held together for thousands of years against the most unfriendly environment on Earth, the changes are simply coming too fast. The social scientists call it future shock. I call it tragedy. I realize that Barrow's hard times will eventually give way to a better life, good schools, well-heated homes, a stronger economy. But I know, too, that the true Eskimo of Barrow is gone forever. A wild spirit tamed by change. But there were other parts of the spring trip that will always be welcome in the future daydreams of my life. Like that night in Point Hope, when I reached out and touched the Eskimo in the best way I know how.
Thank God I'm a country boy. I'd play Sally Gooden all day if you could, but the Lord and my wife wouldn't take it very good. So I fiddle when I can, work when I should, and thank God I'm a country boy. Well, I got me a fine wife, I got me old fiddle. When the sun's coming up, I got cakes on a griddle. Life ain't nothing but a fun of on a riddle. Thank God I'm a country boy. Well, I wouldn't trade my life for diamonds or jewels. I never was one of them money-hungry fools. Rather have my fiddle and my plumbing tools. Thank God I'm a country boy. Yeah, city folks driving in the black limousine. A lot of sad people thinking that's a mighty keen. Son, let me tell you now exactly what I mean. Thank God I'm a country boy. Well, I got me a fine wife, I got me old fiddle. When the sun's coming up, I got cakes on the griddle. Life ain't nothing but a funny money riddle. Thank God I'm a country boy. Well, my fiddle was my daddy's till the day he died. And it took me by the hand, held me close to his side. Said, live a good life, play my fiddle with pride. And thank God you're a country boy. Well, my daddy taught me young how to hunt and how to whittle. Taught me how to work and play a tune on the fiddle. Taught me how to love and how to live just a little. And thank God I'm a country boy. Well, I got me a fine wife, I got me old fiddle. When the sun's coming up, I got cakes on the griddle. Life ain't nothing but a funny on a riddle. Woo! Thank God I'm a country boy, yes!
To whatever extent the Eskimo's life has been changed, there are certain drives that run too deep to be rooted out so easily. Each spring, on the vast ice floes of the Chukchi Sea between Alaska and Siberia, the Eskimos of Point Hope go forth to keep a date with their past, to seek out and do battle with a great mammal of the North, the bowhead whale. Although there is a global movement to ban the taking of whales, it would seem a small victory to deny these men, whose heritage is rapidly being erased on so many fronts, this ancient right, this cultural connection. Yet, the world population of whales continues to decrease. But for a brief time out here on the ice, the Eskimo can still be his father's son. He sharpens his lance with the same care and respect he gives all things in his life. His gun, ancient by our standards, must be free of ice when the critical moment arrives. But mostly he watches and waits, his eyes fixed on the southern rim of the sea, the direction from which the great whale will come. The bowhead may not arrive for days or even weeks, But the Eskimos' patience endures the passage of time like the ice withstands the wind. It is a meeting born of history and survival, as real and necessary as the seal is to the polar bear and the polar bear is to the seal. Two of them, bowheads, 60,000 pounds each. Still, the response is unhurried, conditioned by 50 generations of whaling in the Arctic. Within a matter of seconds, the Eskimos have launched dozens of umiaks into the frigid seas. Moving to a silent rhythm, they drive their umiaks at optimum speeds, each inwardly preparing for battle. The bowhead will be 50 or 60 feet long, easily capable of overturning their light sealskin crafts with a flip of its tail. If that happens, and it has many times, the crew will freeze to death in minutes. He sounded. His tail's driven him deep beneath the surface. His lungs are filled with enough air to last an hour or more. And so they wait. And wait some more. After 2 hours, they return to the warmth of a fire, knowing the whale is miles away. But for a brief period out there, time stood still, and they felt the good feeling. Hunters of the sea, men, Eskimos. As the long day begins to die, the wind pauses and switches, now coming out of the north, bringing the recent bitterness of winter. Cold and cutting and dark. At this time of year, the sun dips below the horizon for no more than an hour, a mere whisper of nightfall to the Eskimo whose winter is one long night's journey. Huddled against the chill, they sleep, restoring themselves for their next meeting with the bowhead. But during this particular pause, the north wind continues to intensify, and in the morning, they wake up to the unexpected. The night wind has driven an iceberg against the huge floe where they have camped, and now the ice underfoot is groaning and breaking up. No time now for tea and fish. They must move, and move quickly, or they'll find themselves adrift in the Arctic Sea. In a matter of minutes, the camp is disassembled and loaded aboard sleds, and with little time to spare. Very soon now, the ice will be breaking faster than a man can run. The journey to the next location will cover only 7 miles, but virtually every foot along the way will be an effort. Snowmobiles are no help here. Hour after hour, they hack away at the jagged ice, clearing a narrow passage for the sleds, which must be hauled by hand, the old way, the way of their fathers. This spring, they have been lucky. Other years, the cruel north wind has forced them to move 3-4 times a day, often in the middle of the shortening night. The struggle goes on, mile after mile, and each man, as if bound by tradition, bears his load with a stoicism that only the Arctic could possibly demand. "11 hours later, the struggle ends, but it was worth it, for here the ice is solid, the sea calm, and the wind blows, gentle and warm." And so, once again, they set up camp. And through the glimmering night, they rest, assured by the radio of clear skies and soft winds for tomorrow. But in the morning, the weather plays another cruel trick. Now the air is thick with moisture and cold enough to congeal the seawater into a gray field of slush. Visibility has been cut in half, and each stroke of the paddle is hard labor now. By midday, the Umiaks out on patrol bogged down, their crews close to exhaustion and running dangerously low on spirit. Then hope comes rolling through a lead in the ice. A herd of belugas and small white whales, 15-footers. Almost certainly they are followed by the bowhead. And the Eskimos, reaching down into a diminishing reservoir of strength, move their Umiaks into position. Numbering more than 20 boats, the whaling fleet stretches itself over a mile along the path taken by the belugas, the path followed by the bowhead, if it follows. The crews grow impatient, especially the younger members. Some suggest they killed the belugas, but they vote to let them pass, gambling that the huge bowhead will follow, and they'll need only one kill to feed their village. Crouching motionless, they watch the belugas pass beyond reach. And now the die is cast. If the bowhead does not follow in their wake, second thoughts will be heatedly expressed by the younger members of the fleet. And there he is, his huge black image a triumph for these men who've worked so hard to see it. late and poorly thrown, but the bowhead must still pass several more boats strung out along the edge of the floe. There, a hit. Too deep that time. Now they release the float to mark the bowhead's movements. And almost immediately he sounds. Together they pray that the lance will hold firm and that he will not swim into the ice and die there. Finally, the long wait ends. A red flag is flown, marking the spot of the kill. And now all the whalers converge on the carcass. Butchering a bowhead is a long process in which every ounce of the 60,000 pounds is regarded as useful. The meat is cut into steaks of varying sizes and distributed to members of the crew according to their involvement in the kill. Not only will the blubber be eaten next winter, but it will provide oil to light the long night. The baleen, the filtering gills, will be woven into baskets and matting for their homes. Even the intestine is considered a delicacy. Finally, the whalers divide up their catch, the largest portions going to the captain of the crew that struck the whale. It has taken nearly a full day to butcher and divide the great bowhead, and now each member heads home, dead tired, but deeply in touch with his past, at least for another year. Back at Point Hope, the entire village gathers to celebrate the taking of the whales. As I strolled among the crowd, a modern 35mm camera snapped away as the victorious crews hauled their umiaks and whaling gear to a prominent place so that boat as well as hunter could be honored. As I watched the proceedings, I realized that this special reverence the Eskimo has for his tools will last only so long as he builds them himself. But otherwise, I might have been attending a New England clam bake or a Sunday picnic, except perhaps for a few subtleties. One not-so-subtle difference was the food, which in no way resembled chicken or lobster. But as someone once said, you haven't been to the north until you've tried whale, especially the intestine. I wondered whether they were passing the plate or the buck. Then it was my turn.
Is that too big?
No, that's fine, Dorothy. So just pop it in, huh?
Yeah, chew on it. Chew it good.
Huh?
Chew it good. It's tough.
Yeah.
It's better with salt.
Too late. I've noticed some people.
Swallow it.
You swallow it or do you?
Swallow it.
Swallow it. Chew it all up and swallow it. All right. Whatever you say. I think it tastes good. Still chewing.
No.
No guitar. All right. Look straight ahead. Look straight ahead, all right? After the festival, as I walked alone through the graveyard of the whales, their great curved bones beseeching the Arctic heavens, I was fully aware that the movement to ban whaling throughout the world must rightfully apply to the Eskimo as well as other men. I realized, too, that the price the Eskimos will pay reaches far beyond lost profits. We left Point Hope and flew farther north to a place where life will never change. The most forbidding place on Earth, the polar cap. I remember every detail. I was flying with Tony Oni while Hoppy was riding shotgun off to our left. This was Hoppy's favorite part of the North because, as he puts it, there are no excuses out here. And after one look, I knew what he meant. This had to be the loneliest, most desolate place I'd ever seen. And I was very glad we had both planes. Our mission was to photograph the polar bear. You always go out with two planes?
Yes, you do. That's your insurance. If you don't have that other airplane, if you had a problem on landing, like you knock a ski off, or an engine problem, you couldn't get back by yourself, and nobody could find you. I'll tell you, John, one time we got in a deal where there was a dead whale caught in the ice, and the smell, the bear came around it. There must have been 20 bear right around that one whale. The grandest sight I ever saw. Woo!
An hour passed, and I knew we had ranged dangerously far out over the ice cap. And as I watched our shadows ghosting over the whiteness, it became very clear why experience is a necessity out here. Landing a plane on that stuff would be a very tricky and treacherous matter.
Got him right
right there. Look at that guy. Woo!
Hey, that's a nice bear.
Wow! Look at that guy.
Damn, there you just passed over him.
Right, Bob, we got him.
Look at that guy.
Man, that's a nice bear.
Go ahead, see if I can find a place to land.
Okay,
Wow.
go ahead.
I'm down now, and it looks pretty smooth, but I'd land a little bit to the right of my tracks. I think it might be a little bit better over there.
You want to see this?
He's just coming
Right
over
there.
that-
God.
Yeah, look at that. Oh, isn't that amazing? Yeah. Look at that. That's a nice bear, too. Boy, oh boy.
They're always hunting.
Yeah. Isn't that something?
The big old bug.
It's his world, isn't it?
It sure is. All his.
Got his nose up. Put his nose up to sniff, huh?
Yeah, just testing.
I just can't. Whoa.
Says, I thought I heard something there.
Boy.
Hey, he looks like he might lay down right there.
Isn't that beautiful?
Going to sleep.
You just be real comfortable over there, you polar bear. Do they have a sleep cycle? I mean, do they sleep hours, or do they just take a rest whenever they feel
I
like it?
imagine they just rest whenever they feel like it. You know, they have very good eyesight.
Oh, they do?
Yes, they do. Good eyesight, keen ears, and a real terrific nose. He's looking at us. He doesn't know what to think, but he's looking. See him looking over here? Look at that. See him look over here at us? He's wondering about us. What is that I see over there? Hold real still, you guys. Everybody hold real still.
He was beautiful. Tony Oni had tried many times to describe how I'd feel when this moment arrived. But now, as I looked at him, I felt something more than awe. I felt all the force of the wilderness flow into me like a prayer. He was the wilderness, powerful, elegant, and complete. I snapped another picture or two, but then I stopped, held by the presence of this white animal in this white land. When he stood on his hind legs, I swear he was looking straight into my eyes. When he lumbered off, his great head swinging from side to side and his tongue and nose working the air, I thought of what Tony had said. It's his, all his. And I said to myself, so may it be forever. Alone out there on the Alagnak, with a soft summer breeze bringing the night to Alaska, my memory finally let go of that spring trip to the Arctic, and I knew that those experiences would always be with me. Thank you. Already a little water in there. This was our last day on the Alagnak.
Just made to order.
But before we'd reach Hopi in the Bush Plains and take off for the Wrangell Mountains, we still faced the fastest piece of whitewater on the river, which extends about a mile where the Alagnak squeezes its way through a tight canyon. Next to singing and, well, maybe skiing, I guess I like shooting whitewater more than anything else in the world. Okay.
Looks like it's gonna rain on us a little, doesn't it?
Well, won't feel so cold when we fall in the river.
I wish you would.
Not a chance, Red, not a chance. We no sooner got out on the river when the sky opened up and a chill rain sifted down on us. But rain or no rain, there was no turning back. Well, we made it, but not without getting soaked to the skin from all directions. And as we rode out the last mile or so of our river journey, before I'd say goodbye to Red and Mike, I just sat there under that chilling rain, and I felt warm inside, and a little sad, promising myself that someday I'd come back and see my 3 newfound friends, Mike and Red, in the Alagnak River. Now it was on to the Wrangell Mountains. And late that afternoon, there they were. I'd asked Tony that we save the Wrangels for the last stop on our trip because mountains, no matter where they are, they'll always seem like home to me. These peaks are the northern tip of a vast mountain chain that extends some 4,000 miles, down through British Columbia and Alberta, into the United States, where they call them the Rockies. far, I'd flown over 15,000 miles of Alaska with an individual who by now had become a close friend. A friend I know that I'll keep for the rest of my life. From Barrow at the top of the world to Point Hope, Shishmaref, and the Alagnak, he showed me a world I'd only dreamt about. A world more precious to him than practically anything else. We'd seen and done a lot of things, more things than some of us do in a lifetime. And for me, why, each experience had been enjoyable, valuable. Yet somehow, it all hadn't come together yet. And now I was hoping it would, here in the Wrangell Mountains. Well, that's one way to bring her down. And there, in the middle of nowhere, was a landing field and the tiny town of McCarthy. But before Tony put her down, he made a pass by the original Kennecott mine, where 40 years earlier, hundreds of men worked the world's largest known copper deposit. It was our first stop after we stowed our gear in McCarthy.
Wow. It started in about 1911. They took out some of the richest ore that they've ever taken out.
Copper ore?
Copper ore, yeah. About 70 or 80% copper ore. Made a lot of money on it.
How long did it go, Tony? What happened to the place?
Oh, it went along good. They were getting a little low on ore, and all of the men voted the union in 1938. And so Kennecott gave them 2 days to move it all out. They were going to shut her down, and they just shut her down just like that.
Just like that?
Yeah.
Boy, it's a beautiful place.
Isn't it, though?
Just beautiful.
I love to come here.
It's like a movie set, you know? I mean, you know what they ought to have here is a chase scene.
Boy, that would... a lot of places...
You're it. McCarthy and Barrow are a study in opposites. While the Eskimos of Barrow are struggling to climb into the present, The residents of McCarthy cling to the past. They come from all over North America, drifters, most of them, searchers for a clean, well-lighted life, free of highways and bad air and dirty politics. Each night, most of the population of 50 or so would gather in the town's only lodge. I'd sing a few songs, and then we would settle down and discuss all sorts of things. But mainly, we talked about life and how to live it. For Joanne Miller, the way was just as clear as the mountain air.
Hey, do you know what happened to me? I am alive because I learned to live in the mountains. You touch people when you live up here. You touch these people and these people. It's a painful thing to talk about sometimes because I am a dying person because I'm becoming extinct. Extinct, just like the seals and the bears and the eagles.
But we need you, don't we?
Oh my God, you need us. Yes, you need us. You need us for your children. You need us for a heritage here in America. We are your heritage.
Next morning, Hoppy, Tony, and I headed for the high country. And I kept thinking about what Joanne had said the night before. We are your heritage. Joanne might have been speaking for all of Alaska, for all 500,000 square miles, from the frozen wastes of the Arctic to the Aleutians, all the way to the Wrangels. For the Eskimos, the Aleuts, the Indians, for the trappers, the prospectors, the hunters, and the pipeline workers, for the rivers still running free, and the mountains, and the great rolling forests. All of it remaining much as it always was, as the American West was a century ago. Alaska is our past, living in the present. What a luxury to have this second chance. But across the land, I've heard the initial rumbling of progress and seen the spoils of change. And I fear for this precious place and its people. And what of the animals? Will the Arctic still call to the spirit without the polar bear roaming its face at will? And what would the Eskimo of Point Hope do if the bowhead no longer arrived in the spring in the Chukchi Sea? What if the brown bear no longer came to feed at the McNeil River because there were no salmon? Or no bear? What then? Well, I think Alaska would be stilled forever. An abandoned temple from another time with different beliefs. The animals are the vital organs of the wilderness, just as they are the barometers of our destructiveness. Here in the Wrangels, for example, what would a climb into the high country be without at least the promise of a sight such as this? Look at those horns. Boy,
Really sharp.
they are. And just cold black. I wonder what he's thinking about over there.
He's probably saying, wonder what those yo-yos are doing over there.
I imagine he's probably had as good a time as I am.
There's a bunch of sheep over there, yeah.
Oh, really?
Down that ridge. It's still awful suspicious.
Look at that.
They come a lot of ground in a short time, don't they?
Mm-hmm.
Takes us 15 minutes to walk over there, and about a minute and a half, and they're there.
Oh, Tony, this is as beautiful as anything I've ever seen.
The only time I can think that it's any prettier is
right at sundown.
And the coming sundown would mark the end of my trip into the Alaskan wilderness. The next day, I'd board a jet in Anchorage and head south into another life. So until the sun dropped behind the Wrangles, I sat on that mountain slope with Tony and Hoppy and just took it all in. As the night gathered in the valleys and began swiftly climbing toward us, I watched a doll ram grazing and thought about how much he had in common with Alaska. Strong, majestic, masculine, his future nonetheless hangs by a very thin, almost invisible thread. A thread that could easily be broken by just a touch of carelessness. And then he'd be gone forever. And suddenly it was all over, much too soon. But the memories remain alive and compelling, visions merging together in my mind and telling me to return as soon as possible. Because there's a lot going on in Alaska these days. Forces working against each other. Forces of the past and of the future. Of passivity and aggression. And some are saying that coexistence is impossible. That one side has to lose. Well, I think that's very old-fashioned. Alaska's our last chance with the wilderness. Let's not wait until it's too late, when the cry across the land will be, bring it back. Bring it back. Let's keep it. Nurture it. Love it. Let it be. It's the American child.